Amtrak is usually pretty good at its job. However, issues that happen on a train can snowball quickly, and situations can become catastrophes pretty easily. Now, I don't have my computer available at this very moment to do a deep analysis of this. Towards the end, I will get into some more specifics about what happened with all the trains I mentioned in this incident, but I cannot do that at this very moment to start off. So that'll sort of be how we end with an analysis of how bad this affected each train. First, we need to look at the context. The context of the whole situation is why I rely on Amtrak so heavily. I live on Long Island. As we know, Long Island, the only way in or out is via New York City. It's the only way in or out. There's a few other ways that we actually will get to briefly when we touch on something a little bit intense, but for the most part, the only way in or out is through the city. And driving through the city, there are not a lot of exit points out. You have the CBX, you have the Belt Parkway, you have the BQE. You could cut through, Manhattan directly on 34th Street if you're really feeling adventurous, but there's very few ways out, and the traffic skyrockets because you're putting millions of people onto just a few roads. This is where trains are very helpful, because trains can get you into New York City quickly, and then from New York City, you can take the Amtrak to wherever you need to go. Not to mention, Manhattan is beautiful, and it's really breathtaking every single time you get to set foot in it when you're going from Penn Station to Moynihan, how easy that is. And for the most part, it's a faster, cleaner commute than driving. However, delays do happen. On September 7th, my Northeast Regional Train 87 was going to be delayed for an hour because of moderately inclement weather. Luckily, I was able to switch onto Crescent 19, which took me down to Wilmington, and I actually got back earlier, since that train, which was delayed 15 minutes in and of itself, was actually early enough that I caught it because LA was early enough. And this is on my second Amtrak trip, my first one back to UD. On my fourth Amtrak trip, second one back, I had to bump it up 4 hours, I think, or maybe 3 hours, or maybe only 2, I don't know, to bump it up because of a risk of inclement weather. My eighth Amtrak trip, so the fourth one down, I had an hour-long delay due to our train needing to be involved in the rescue of another train, and we will get to that, because rescues do cause lengthy delays. As far as the third trip one, so my second one back home, I forgot about that. There was an electrical issue on the rail further down south in Virginia, causing an 80-minute delay for the train that I was unable to switch. Get to this semester, obviously there was a train I had to switch days because of the forecast of a blizzard. And on my ninth Amtrak, so my fifth one back home, it was raining, and it caused a 30-minute delay for me to get home. Newark Station itself, when you're going for break, there can be a 15-minute delay just because of all the people who have to get on the Amtrak. And I'm being serious. That can cause a lengthy delay. Even on my most recent trip home, there's a 10-minute delay for some unknown reason. But none of that pales in comparison to what happened when I came back from Mother's Day. That was by far the worst commute. But before we get into that, we need to go into a cellar, which I've never been on before, but I have several of them booked for when I'm coming back home. I'm taking a 210 Acela on Friday that's going to get me back in an hour and 40 minutes compared to the Northeast Regional, which takes about 2 hours to get from New York to Wilmington. They actually have a station at Newark, which I use sometimes, but it's not very good, so I don't use it very often. Additionally, we have me and my mom are coming down on Sunday. So that time, the LAR may very well not be an option at all because it's about to go on strike, potentially. If that happens, we very well might take a drive out to Port Jefferson, take a ferry to Bridgeport, then take a lift to Stamford and take a train from Stamford back down. It will leave Stamford at 5 and get back at 7:40 p.m. to Wilmington. We were discussing if the LAR happens, if we're willing to leave Monday morning and take a 6 a.m. LAR and take a 7:35 a.m. train that would get to Wilmington at 9:05. But after what happened, I'm not so sure if that's even a safe idea anymore. So I'm not even sure that's a safe idea anymore. And then on Wednesday, I'll take some train back when we come back. So, but again, the LA very well might go on strike soon. If it doesn't, we'll either look at contingencies or we might just completely rebook. We might cancel and then book and try and see if we can get that same train. I don't know what we're gonna do, but I guess we'll see what the prices are and how much money that would, cost. So we'll see. We shall see. But anyway, back to what happened. Basically, I went home for the weekend for Mother's Day and also because I need to see a doctor. So the plan was simple. I would take a 3 o'clock Northeast Regional train back. So I get on the LAR, I take a 1:10 train, get me into New York City at 1:50, and then I'd be on the Amtrak, would leave at 3:05, supposed to get to Wilmington at 5. That plan was mostly going according to schedule until we crossed the Delaware River into this weird place called Levittown, Pennsylvania. At 4:03 p.m., though, the train stops because of an electrical issue. At first, there was hope it can be resolved quickly. However, it became clear immediately by 4:45 that we would need a detrain. Amtrak was in contact with multiple different trains. One of which was going to stop literally to rescue us, or at least everyone that could take on them, which included me, thank God, and take them back to Trenton, New Jersey, the closest station, which was actually only about 4 miles away. From Trenton, there was another train that was stopped for a very long time to allow us to then get back down at least to DC. Now, if you were further than DC, there was that train did go to Philly, but then it made another long stop for inspection. So specifically, for me at least, at 5:30 p.m. I finally got on Crescent 20 to go northbound back to Trenton. We got off at 5:40, 5:50. After looping around Trenton Station, we got on that train. We were out of Trenton at 6, back on our way, and I made it to Wilmington at 7. That train, in Philly was, I think, about 2 hours and 30 minutes late. So I think that train hit Philly at about, I think from what I heard, it hit Philly at about 6:50, but then it didn't leave Philly until 7:32 because it did inspections in Philadelphia, and that train was over 3 hours late. If you were stuck on that train because you couldn't get on that train, I don't know what it would have even been like. If that was me, I probably would have just taken an Uber directly from Philly, expensive as it would have been, because I was just done with it at that point. I was done with the delays and all that Amtrak nonsense, because holy crap, that was brutal. But there's a few lessons when I get on my computer that I want to teach you. It's that, number one, these issues can cascade across a whole day. Many trains could face delays of an hour just as they're trying to deal with that stuff. It did start to rain pretty heavily, actually, after the train, came through, which made sense. The temperatures had soared to the low 80s on Sunday across much of UD, even though in the city and on Long Island, temperatures were kind of kept more so to around 70 degrees, but they were in the low 80s further south down here. And yet, as I pass through this mirror, and you can actually like low-key see what I'm wearing right now, you can low-key see what I'm wearing right now. It's gotten much colder. Highs today, only around 60 degrees. A big cold front came through. Now, the warmth is going to build again like it always does. And it'll be 90 degrees before we know it. Actually, that might be next week. However, today, it is very cold. It's sweatshirt, long sleeve shirt, and pants weather, which I didn't think I have to say on May 11th, but I do. And it just kind of is what it is. Hopefully I can wear something at least a little bit lighter over the next few days until I eventually get to get out of here. But what I'm wearing is, very heavy today. After those shorts weather, at least for a UD perspective, stewing here literally yesterday. But that's not the point. The point is these delays can catastrophically compound itself, because not only were several trains held up to deal with the rescue of us, but in addition, there were the tracks in the Levittown, Pennsylvania area were blocked. So all trains going between Trenton and Philly, which is pretty much like the core of the Northeast Regional, it's busiest from New York City to DC, and this includes the area in between Trenton and Philly, had to, deal with the cleanup of the debris of a power line literally falling on the tree. It caused delays into the night. It took a very long time to clean up. Now, Amtrak did have a very good response to this. The fact that for something that serious, I was already, I was only delayed 2 hours in the grand scheme of things, was actually pretty good. Now, granted, part of it is me getting lucky that I, happened to be able to get off, because if I didn't, then my delay would have probably been a lot worse. But even still, that is actually a pretty good response time from Amtrak, partially helped by I was on their busiest line, where they have by far the most frequent service. Now, is this going to load? My computer's bugging me out, and it's starting to annoy me. I do actually want to go through the time stamp, but I can't even see if I'm connected to if something as basic as connected to Wi-Fi right now. This happened last Monday too, and it always drives me crazy. All right. Well, unfortunately, I was going to go through this when my computer's rebooting, so. That is not the Amtrak, that is a CSX line that connects Baltimore and Philly, and it goes just kind of north of the campus. I think I'll just restart my whole computer. I think that's a way to go. That's a CSX line. The CSX line actually runs north of the Amtrak, so the Amtrak passes south of UD, albeit north of I-95 here, although it flip-flops positions with I-95 several times throughout that, even though it runs mostly alongside it. The CSX line does run further north. It in this area, like that's 896, and it's kind of just past 896, if you understand that area of Newark, Delaware. All right, now I'm hoping that my computer works, and it does. Okay. So now, if you look at Amtrak status, hopefully now I can find some thing, and I'm down to literally 1 bar of service. So maybe I'll try and get inside that building where the internet access is definitively better than here, because obviously I'm sort of in the outer tentacles of where this is, because it only really emanates out of buildings like that one, or if I need to, that one as well. So now that I'm actually in the building, let's see if this decides it wants to work. So I can sort of highlight what I was talking about. So, New York, Penn to Wilmington. We want to be around here. So this train was slightly delayed, 20 minutes. Not related to the whole thing going on. This was the one where, 3 hours and 20 minutes late out of Philadelphia because of that whole power line thing. Again, I was lucky that I was able to get onto 189. And again, it was about an hour late. It's at the Philadelphia because it was stopping to assist a disabled train. 189 was assisting 87. So yeah, that was that. This train, Acela 2255, was delayed 20 minutes because of both the rain and the disabled trains that was blocking the routes out of Metro Park. So again, that was obviously, that train in Levittown, Pennsylvania. This one, the 149, was an hour and 11 minutes late. Actually, an hour and 20 minutes late because of a delay north of Philadelphia because of moving the debris caused from when our train struck the wire. 135 was about an hour late because, again, the same thing. Eventually this train was still 50 minutes late because of the electrical wires. It's a Acela 2257. It took multiple hours. Even the Vermonter 57 had a 20-minute delay. Even the 165 Northeast Regional had a 20-minute delay. This train was 15 minutes because of rail congestion, although I'm not sure if that's related. Either way, it took a while for this to fully heal. This train was actually a bit early, and then this train was late for an unrelated reason, but this was the big one. Because look at when it arrived, 8:24. Even some of the other trains that had lengthy delays and left hours later still got in earlier than that. Like 189 beat it in, 2255 beat it in, even 149 beat it in, and that had a lengthy delay as well. And this doesn't even show the full story because from this, we don't even get the train from Wilmington to New York because there are probably other additional delays on that side. Like Crescent 20, an hour, 3 minutes late. Now, it's not saying why it's late. There was no notice compared to the other ones, but this is the one where we got on. So, that 5, they were stopped literally in Levittown, Pennsylvania as we were boarding the train, and so they were late to help accommodate us, that train. Although Northeast Regional 156 was still, on time. So, these trains were on time. So there weren't really delays. So there weren't really delays caused by this going northbound, except for the one train that was helping us. Most of the delays were going southbound. But this is still a lesson. One issue on an Amtrak can cause catastrophic delays. For what it's worth, around this area, so Penn Valley, Levittown, Pennsylvania, was about where the incident happened. As you can see, Trenton is right here, which is why it made sense for us to backtrack up to Trenton. Trenton Station is, Trenton Transit Center is right here, actually, just before the Delaware River, where you cross back into PA. And Philly is like all the way down here, so it would have been too far for us to tow. And that's probably why they wanted a rescue train going southbound, because it was really crammed, so they probably only wanted it to be for a few miles. And here's the thing. If you're going south of D.C., in that, you are completely screwed, because that 189 only goes as far as D.C. So... you look at train number 87, and just look at New York and see if it tells us. And it's obvious. It left Metropark 2 minutes late. It left Philly. Oh, 7:52, not even 7:32. I guess it must have arrived at I think at 7-ish, and then 15-minute delay there for inspections. I mean, if I was there, I was stuck on there if I was Uber, but not everyone had the ability. Not everyone was even going, some people who are on 87 then had to wait for that train in Philly for who knows how long, because they're going to Virginia. And look, it departed Wilmington at 8:28 when it was supposed to depart Wilmington at 4:59. So obviously it's a 3.5 hour long delay, and the Philly delay was 3 hours and 20 minutes from 4:34 to what wound up being 7:52. There are points where it was running almost 4 hours late, though it did make up some time, in between Petersburg and Norfolk, Virginia. Even still, the train was supposed to end its travel at 11:38 p.m. It arrived at 3 o'clock sharp in the morning. That is just brutally early as to how bad this delay was. And that meant that, and obviously that was really bad. And then we can look up, some other things too, like the 189, the train that wound up, the train that wound up rescuing us. Obviously that train, wound up having a delay because, it was perfectly fine, at Metropark. Trenton, it's an hour late out of Trenton, and then I think it wound up going slower because of rail issues, so there still would have been a delay, but, got even worse. It left Trenton 55 minutes late, 5:58 p.m., and then it left Philly 6:41, left Wilmington 7:08. It was definitely pretty late. And you look at some of the other trains that were affected, like 135. Out of New York on that day. And that also had an hour late because of that delay. Some other trains did too that I'm not going to get into. So, that train, you look at it, and it's just like, yikes. Left Trenton on time, but then when you got to Philly, it was delayed by almost 50 minutes, and then the delays got even worse after that until they eventually reached, almost a full hour. But even that was not nearly as bad as what happened here. And finally, looking at the crescent, because that's also pretty obvious as to what happened there. You look at the crescent, and And that's a train where, where obviously it was really just running on time, which is pretty impressive considering that it came all the way from New Orleans and it passed through Slidell, Picayune, Hattiesburg, Lowell, Meridian, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Anniston, Atlanta, Gainesville, Toccoa, Clemson, Greenville, Spartanburg, Gastonia, Charlotte, Salisbury, High Point, Greensboro, Danville, Lynchburg, Charlottesville, Cuapula, Manassas, Alexandria. So it's running really on time. And it left Philly exactly on time, 4:14, because it was rescuing us. Didn't leave Trenton until 5:52, so it was running like an hour late. And obviously, it arrived at New York an hour late too. It was supposed to get there 5:48, got there 6:51. The point of this is that Amtrak is usually pretty reliable, but that's usually. And when Amtrak has issues, they are catastrophic. They cascade, and it is a nightmare, especially on a day like Mother's Day, where there's a ton of congestion. You really can't afford to have something like that happen, because the entire travel on the entire Northeast corridor was messed up because of one train striking one power line.